Hey there, Cosmic Warriors, and welcome back to another video. And if you are new here, my name is Hannah. I am a Western Practical Astrologer. Okay, so in today's video, we're going to be talking all about the Mercury signs. Yes, Mercury through the signs, through this perspective of, okay, how do you speak, right? Thinking about communication, because Mercury is the planet of communication, but also how do you learn? Right? What is your learning style? Yes. I hope you are looking forward to this one. Now, before we do dive in, make sure to comment, like, subscribe, all that good stuff, and let me know your Mercury placement. My Mercury, okay, so, well, Mercury within my chart. Mercury is in Aquarius in my chart. In the 6th house, using the whole sign system, but the 5th house in Placidus. Yes. So with that, let's get into the Mercury signs. And I just want to say as well, thank you all so much to my new subscribers, new viewers to the channel. Thank you for being here. And I really hope that you have been enjoying this series so far. The Mercury signs. Okay. Just to let you know, if you would like to book a reading with me, you can visit my website, hannahselsewhere.com. You can find all of my astrology products there. And of course, I gotta say thank you so much to my patrons over at Patreon for all of your support. Becoming a patron is a great way to support the channel. Okay, over on the Cosmic Check-In podcast, there is an episode all about Mercury. So that is episode 13. So if you want more information, more in-depth information about Mercury in astrology, in your birth chart, make sure to give that podcast episode a listen. Thank you. Right. So just some hopefully useful information so you can understand, Mercury a bit more and what Mercury is all about. Mercury can show how and where you learn. Even thinking about which types of topics, subjects are you interested in, right? What do you like to learn about? What are you curious about? What grabs your attention? But it's also about your learning style plus your communication style. So how do you speak? But with communication isn't just about what we say, how we speak, how we share. It's also about how we listen. Listening is also a big, important part when it comes to communication. And then Mercury is also about how we grasp the information. How do we process it? How do we form connections? The conclusions that we arrive to via, our own mental capacity. And how we then, based on how we form those connections then is so important. And curiosity is a big part of this, naturally. Interest and how we share our thoughts. Right. I want to say, though, that a person's communication style shows how they communicate and interact with others. So there are many types of communication styles. So, for example, there is passive, assertive, passive-aggressive, and aggressive. And people can communicate in different ways based on many factors, such as their mood, the environment they're in, and past experiences. There are also many elements that can really influence how we communicate. These include the person who is sharing the message, the person who is receiving the message, how the message is being channeled, and the message itself. Things like noise and feedback also matter. How fascinating to think that this is really what Mercury is about. So therefore, understanding our communication style can help us communicate effectively and be listened to. Now, I also want to touch on the learning part of it. So a person's learning style describes the way different students learn. The way we learn helps us process and retain information. There are 4 main learning styles, which are visual, so this is more sight, kinesthetic, which is doing, so actually doing something, that's a great way to learn. Auditory, which is more listening, and then writing and reading. So you could say that my podcast episodes would be more of an auditory way of learning about astrology, right? Because you're listening. And hopefully whenever I figure out how to do subtitles or how to do the subtitles there so you can read along, that can be added. But then you can look at this video as more visual, a visual way of learning, but at the same time auditory. Knowing our learning style can benefit us massively when it comes to new subjects and topics. So yes, this is why it's so important to really think about Mercury. Where is Mercury in your chart? Because Mercury is going to point toward how you communicate and how you learn. So with that being said, let's now dive into your signs. First up, we have Mercury in Aries. So if you have Mercury, if Mercury is in Aries in your chart, your sun sign is either going to be in Aries, Pisces, or Taurus. Mercury in Aries, folks, your communication style tends to be assertive. You are typically direct and honest with others, right? Very honest with your words. Even if what you say might make someone else uncomfortable, you can't help but just say the thing because it's what you think as an individual. Now, there are people who will admire you for being straightforward, but others who can be sensitive to your words. When you want something, you simply communicate it. However, there can be times when you are an aggressive communicator. This is when you demand your needs to be heard whilst possibly violating other people's rights. And you could very well jump to conclusions. So with that being said, if the sun is also in Aries and you've got Mercury in Aries, perhaps these things that I talk about, it is more largely about yourself and it is more largely about being straightforward. Just in the moment, you say the thing and that's it. It's out. But then let's say sun is in Taurus. There's going to be more of a practical feel at the same time when it comes to communication. You're still perhaps going to be straightforward and direct, but maybe you're a bit more patient. You're a bit more grounded as you communicate. But then let's say the sun is in Pisces. Well, then you may be a lot more sort of sensitive to other people's feelings and their emotions whilst communicating. Now, when it comes to your learning style, auditory isn't really your strong suit. Okay, so I guess this is the listening part. You may prefer kinesthetic learning. Okay, so this is more about the doing. Learning whilst doing. And when you carry out physical tasks, you understand the information. You understand the new subjects that you're learning about way, way better. Last thing I want to say here, this is just what we've been doing throughout all of the planets through the signs. The secondary progressed Mercury moving into Taurus throughout your life. This could also, it could also be moving into Gemini at some point too. Just really depends on your chart, but we'll just focus on one at a time, okay? Mercury moving into Taurus for you could welcome this greater patience, this greater calmness, and perhaps being a lot more practical when it comes to communication as well. Providing practical solutions. Okay, let's now move on to Mercury in Taurus, folks. So if you have Mercury in Taurus, your sun is either going to be in Aries, your sun is either going to be in Taurus or in Gemini. Mercury in Taurus, folks, your communication style tends to be a mix of assertive and passive. You can be opinionated and you can be headstrong, right? You can be pretty set in your views, you're committed to them. But also, you can come across as relaxed. You can come across as more patient and as laid back. Still, you want to get your point across. And the advice you give is usually pretty sound. It's pretty sound advice. You are also typically well liked for your ability to get along with others. And you possess a very soothing voice, very soothing, and people may feel this connection then whenever you speak. They may really enjoy listening to you. However, there can be times when you are a passive-aggressive communicator, and this may happen when you appear to be unbothered by something, but underneath you're actually pretty annoyed, or maybe you're hurt. Communicating how you actually feel can be a difficult one. Naturally, we want to think about the sun. So if the sun is in Aries and you've got Mercury in Taurus, well, maybe, you're a lot more to the point. And if something does bother you, you may, especially if, your ego is hurt or if your heart is in something, then you may just say the thing, okay? You could be even, that blend could suggest being quite passionate. But then if the sun is in Taurus and Mercury is in Taurus, then this is where we notice more of this soothing way of communicating, and how it's more of a slow, right? It's slow, it's methodical, it's more thorough. Gradually, eventually, it's getting the information out, and it's communicating what you want to say. But then if the sun is in Gemini and you've got Mercury in Taurus, well, that sun in Gemini is still going to be pretty sharp, pretty witty, pretty with it, right? Bright, enthusiastic, expressive, but still Mercury in Taurus is going to perhaps, it can maybe ease the thoughts a little bit for you, or help you slow down your communication a little bit. Now, when it comes to your learning style, you prefer kinesthetic and visual learning. So it's visual, but it's also about doing at the same time. You want to know how things work, how they're actually rooted, grounded within reality. And throughout your life then, with the secondary progressive Mercury entering into Gemini, then this is where we're perhaps going to see how your communication style does actually become quicker, faster, more flexible. All right, let's now move on to Mercury in Gemini. So if you have Mercury in Gemini, right, the sun is either going to be in Gemini, or it's going to be in Taurus, or it's going to be in Cancer. Mercury in Gemini, folks, your communication style tends to be assertive. You often appear expressive and confident, but at the same time, you also seem emotionally detached. This can make you hard to read. And whilst you can be interesting to speak with, you might not listen the best because you might be thinking to yourself of what you're going to say next, or it could be that your thoughts are just going so quickly, that it's like, I need to get this out. Perhaps you interrupt more than you realize, right? And it is also likely that your communication style, it changes. It changes depending on your mood. It changes depending on who you're around. And ultimately, you prefer to be mentally stimulated, and there's more to learn then that way, right? There's that greater curiosity with you, and you can I think you enjoy it when you can bounce ideas off others more so. And then keeping your focus at the same time, though, can be a bit of a challenge, okay? And then this could even possibly be where you forget things or it's difficult to retain things. So with that being said, if the sun is in Gemini and Mercury is also there, then this information that I just said, it's perhaps going to be more significant for you, or there is that greater curiosity and that eagerness within conversations and being quite witty and funny, etc. But let's say the sun is in Taurus and then Mercury is in Gemini. Well, there's that mix then, that kind of blend of slowing things down, being more steady and grounded, but yet the mind is still going really, really fast. And then we see here that if the sun is in Cancer and you've got Mercury in Gemini, well, that sun in Cancer is going to be a lot more reflective. Okay, taking things in a little bit more deeper, but still the Mercury in Gemini there can suggest being somewhat detached, especially when you need to be. Okay, when it comes to your learning style, you are a very visual learner. Seeing images and graphics can be super helpful for you. Writing as well, and hey, speaking, actually just speaking it out, these things can help improve your focus. Even just being able to bounce your ideas off another, that maybe it's important to have that communication piece where there is other people involved within the learning process. So joining a course or being a part of a program, etc. And you might also be interested in writing and reading. Naturally, if Mercury is in Gemini, the second I progress, Mercury moving into Cancer throughout your life can welcome then, as I was suggesting a moment ago, that deeper reflection. Okay, even just being able to recognize how information makes you feel there. So on that note, let's move on to Mercury in Cancer, folks. Right, so Mercury being in Cancer means that your sun is either going to be in Cancer, Gemini, or Leo. If you have Mercury in Cancer in your chart, your communication style tends to be passive. You are thoughtful of others and you care about their needs, but you're also sensitive about their opinions and their views. Plus, you may prefer to avoid conflict. You're not up for conflict. It's like, no. And whilst you're a great listener and you take some time to process what is being said in a conversation, there are times when it feels as if nobody listens or cares about you. You might think that others don't consider your feelings, but then saying no can also be difficult. And when this happens, you can be passive aggressive, which can actually lead to aggression, that aggressive sort of way of communicating. Plus, you might mirror the communication style of who you are with. So, if Sun is in Cancer and Mercury is also in Cancer, then yes, indeed, it could even be a situation of others not recognizing you whenever you speak, and that may be hurtful, or perhaps it becomes this mind reader situation. But then there's the whole thing of, well, it's learning also how to communicate how you feel, and even as well what you need. But you see, there can be some form of protection there. Perhaps this also suggests being or possessing this greater sentimental way of sharing and communicating there. But then the sun could be in Gemini, right? And so there really is a big emphasis and focus on relating and sharing and just that chit-chat sort of energy. But your Mercury in Cancer is still going to suggest that you're going to take information in on a more sort of personal level. You can be sensitive to what you hear and what you take in. But then if the sun is in Leo, well, the sun being in Leo could very well create a performance out of that, out of what is being said, really. Or it's that the sun in Leo is really about, I want to be seen. That's important to you. Okay, you wish to be seen when it comes to communication there. And you also wish to be able to express yourself well, which sometimes that can be a little bit more challenging, especially if it is that you feel a certain way and it's difficult for you to share how you feel. Now, when it comes to your learning style, you prefer to learn by doing, by seeing. You might also like to read in your spare time. You could be big on reading. I have noticed this when it comes to people who have Mercury in Cancer in my life. So that's just a personal experience. My mother has Mercury in Cancer, Sun in Cancer too, and my partner as well. So with the second day progress Mercury entering Leo throughout your life, this is really about you being heard. Being heard. It could even just get to a point where, if you feel feeling Cancer, if you feel like you're not being seen or recognized or listened to, then you may have that dignity and that respect within yourself to go, well, not giving them my time, right? Yes, there's just more of a focus on the self there with time. Okay, let's now turn to Mercury in Leo. Mercury in Leo, folks. So with Mercury being in Leo, the sun sign is either going to be Cancer, Leo, or Virgo. Mercury in Leo, folks, your communication style tends to be assertive. You're honest and you advocate for yourself well. You do not have an issue expressing yourself and speaking from your heart. Really being authentic, just sharing what you want to say. Being persuasive and speaking with confidence come natural to you. You can create a performance out of what you say sometimes, or you can really entertain others when it comes to conversations. And you can exaggerate the truth if need be. Others might feel, possibly intimidated or inspired by your enthusiasm. Or they might perceive you as being full on. Or they might, respect you for your authenticity. However, when others are disrespectful, you can be an aggressive communicator. You want to hold the focus of your audience, and being right is a must. But then also, I think a big part of this is if others are trying to dim your light or diminish you in some way, shape, or form, you're going to be quite good at, saying, hey, no, this is what I think. That's not okay, right? That aggressive way of communicating, just straightforward. Naturally, we want to think about the sun. So if the sun is in Cancer here and you've got Mercury in Leo, then perhaps there is greater sensitivity with all of this. So if it ever does become a situation of, you expressing yourself and maybe others think you're full on, etc., you can feel that, you can take that really to heart, really, really personally. It can hurt your feelings, basically. But then this also suggests that you can be quite kind toward other people's feelings too. If the sun is in Leo and Mercury is also there, then, this could very well highlight this, hey, take me or leave me, self-assurance, confidence, advocating for yourself, being very honest there. But then let's say the sun is in Virgo. Well, then perhaps you are a much more analytical person, very detailed, right? You're going to pay attention to the details and consider even how you come across more in terms of, okay, what is maybe the most clean or polished way to say this? Or you could even possibly be quite witty with Mercury being in Virgo there, and providing practical solutions too is blended in with that Mercury. Now, as for learning, well, you prefer learning styles where you can be your creative self. You can use your creativity. So thinking about visual and kinesthetic learning, which can be more beneficial when learning new subjects, but writing and reading as well there. Now, as the second day progresses, Mercury enters into Virgo throughout your life, then this is where we're going to see more of those practical applications come to life through communication and even when it comes to learning itself. So on that note, let's move to Mercury in Virgo, folks. Alrighty. If Mercury is in the sign of Virgo in your chart, your sun is either going to be in Virgo, Leo, or Libra. Mercury in Virgo, folks, your communication style tends to be passive. You typically seem cool and quite logical in conversations without expressing too many emotions. You could be quite matter of fact. You prefer to speak and share information correctly. And it can also appear as if you lack confidence in your communication skills. And this can be true occasionally, but you know what? Most of the time you are observing. You're actually listening to others. You are analyzing what is going on. But you see, saying no can be challenging, even though you complain about it later on. And putting other people's needs before your own is likely, which can lead to passive-aggressive communication. So then whenever we think about where the sun is, let's say the sun is in Leo and you've got Mercury in Virgo, well, you may be a lot more honest and direct about corrections, about things being a particular way. Let's just say you may not hold back as much within conversations. But if the sun is in Virgo there too, this adds greater wit, greater analytical abilities as well, critical thought, things like this. And you may even become really very focused in on the details and what needs to be changed there. And then if the sun is in Libra and you've got Mercury in Virgo, then we are noticing this like balancing act when it comes to you. There can be tendencies of really considering, okay, how do I appear in this situation? It's more about how you look. There could be a greater conscious awareness of how you appear. And so there could be certain things that you hold back on, you hold back from saying, if you will. But at the same time, this could also suggest that you're big on justice, right? You're big on creating harmony within relationships too. And so that Mercury and Virgo can create that order, if you will. Now, when it comes to your learning style, you often switch things up. You want to find a practical use for the information you're learning, and then you leave the rest. It's like, I'm getting something from this, but I'm not from this, so that needs to go. It's all about how useful that information is, how practical, how rooted within reality it is. Now, the second day regress Mercury will eventually enter into Libra throughout your life, and so this, I feel, is going to heighten greater judgment and possibly seeking to really relate and connect within conversations more strongly. So on that note, let's move on to Mercury in Libra. Mercury in Libra, folks. So if you've got Mercury and Libra in your chart, the sun is either going to be in Libra, Virgo, or Scorpio. Mercury and Libra, folks, your communication style tends to be passive. Well liked by many, you please others within conversations. This is because you can easily see both sides of any situation, and you know how to be tactful. You prefer to keep the peace and to sort of, you can act as a great mediator when conflict arises. So if there's an issue, you can be very good at acting as that mediator. You are great at seeing both sides or all sides. You are great at networking and organizing events, hosting events, and you'll want everyone around you to feel content and happy. However, when things feel unfair or out of balance, you can become a passive-aggressive communicator. You might give someone the silent treatment when they are rude, or you might talk about others behind their back. Okay, so there could be some of that going on. Now, at the same time, I do think there can be moments when you are direct, especially whenever you can recognize that things really are not balanced in a very unhealthy way. And you're just going to be straight in this regard. Because for you, it's about, right, we need to restore this. The harmony, the balance needs to be restored again. So, if the sun is in Libra and Mercury is also in Libra, essentially this information stands. It's going to be a lot more, let's just say, significant for you. It'll show up more strongly for you. But then if the sun is in Virgo, then, well, you know what? This could even suggest, if the sun is in Virgo, that you're going to be a lot more picky or a lot more precise, or just maybe there's just certain dramas or, petty discussions, arguments that just are not worth your time and you would rather separate a bit there. Yes. But then if Mercury is in Scorpio, the sun is in Scorpio, my apologies. If the sun is in Scorpio and you have Mercury in Libra, then this is really a situation of you want to go past the superficial, and it's more about that depth. And if it lacks that depth, if it lacks that kind of that emotional understanding, that substance, I guess, that richness, then you're quite quick to just not engage, right? And hey, at the same time, there could be qualities of trying to be in control slightly within those relationship dynamics. Okay, when it comes to learning, you're quite a visual learner. You're also good at listening and taking in new information, which you weigh out in your own time, right? It's all about being able to weigh out that information and to see, okay, well, what do you think? What's this person saying? What's that person saying? And you can weigh out the pros and the cons, etc. Naturally, throughout your life, the secondary progressive Mercury will enter Scorpio, and then this could very well indicate you getting to a point in your life where, you know, you can hold space for the gray, and you can hold space for, okay, this person's perspective and the other person's perspective, but ultimately the secondary progressive Mercury in Scorpio says, well, I know what I think here, and I'm very honest about what is being said here. And I'm going to be very much direct with others, especially if I can sense that things are off balance. Yes. So on that note, let's get into Mercury in Scorpio, folks. If you have Mercury in Scorpio, the sun is either going to be in Scorpio, the sun is either going to be in Libra, or the sun will be in Sagittarius. Right. Your learning style, Mercury in Scorpio, folks, tends to be a mix here of assertive, passive, and aggressive. It all depends on your mood and the environment you're in. So there are times when you're silent and you're strategic, times when you're straightforward, when you're deliberately honest, and then there's times when you want to win and you don't hold back. So you could say that the passive part is more of the silent, strategic. The assertive part is more of the deliberately being honest. And then the aggressive part is more of the not holding back and wanting to win. You can be unpredictable and mysterious then as a communicator. Maybe as well, a big part of this depends on your own mood, or it depends on the situation, this kind of severity of a situation or the intensity of a situation, or how willing you are to put yourself within it. And if you notice someone talking poorly about a friend, you'll defend them without a second thought. You can be dominant within conversations. You may dominate within conversations, and your eye contact is intense. You know, you may actually really appreciate it when someone looks you in the eye whenever they're communicating with you, and vice versa. That may be important to you. And oh my goodness, honesty is huge, huge to you. You're also going to read between the lines. You're going to pick up on what isn't being said there within communication, within discussions. Naturally, if the sun is in Libra and then Mercury is in Scorpio, okay, there is a part of this where perhaps you are a bit more relatable or a bit more understanding that other people have their own things, you know, cooperative, trying to kind of see where others are coming from, right? But if the sun is in Scorpio, then this really could be a situation of, okay, just give it to me straight, get to the point. Okay, good, right, move on. There we go. But then if the sun is in Sagittarius, well, this actually adds a quality of enthusiasm and positivity and banter and laughter, right? There can be more of this laughter and this sort of wildness, this freedom quality that's present within your conversations. So as for your learning style, you prefer to be hands-on. You also prefer to be in control. And others they could give you instructions, but you could find this to be challenging. You know, yeah, you're a leader, really. And if anything, I think this is about you being the one to possibly teach or educate others. Still, yes, when it comes to learning, I think you prefer to be just hands-on, get into it, get into the nitty-gritty, give it to me. And with the secondary progressive Mercury entering Sagittarius throughout your life, this is, I feel, going to add greater width, you know, to really want to broaden your views, to be in search for new understandings, further meanings about life, etc. Yeah, to really open up and to expand your mind with time. So on that note, let's now move on to Mercury in Sagittarius. So if Mercury is in Sagittarius in your chart, your sun is either going to be in Sagittarius, Scorpio, or Capricorn. Mercury in Sagittarius, folks, your communication style tends to be assertive. You have big ideas, which you share with enthusiasm and exaggeration. Your thirst for knowledge is huge. And others often enjoy your humor. They enjoy what you have to say. You are also admired for being open-minded and for also being optimistic, for seeing the brighter side of things. Seeing the silver lining comes naturally to you, seeing the glass as half full. And there is a willingness to share and to be open. However, there can be times when you become impatient with others, times when you don't listen while you do most of the talking. Okay. Yeah, you can just be so eager and so exaggerative and so enthusiastic in the moment. It's like, it's a lot. And then so because of that, there can be a lack of really listening to other people. And you can become an aggressive communicator when you think others are being preachy or if they are being judgmental. But here's the thing, you can also display these traits yourself. Yes. So if the sun is in Sagittarius and Mercury is also there, then indeed we notice here how, you express yourself in this open, assertive, enthusiastic way, so much knowledge, very positive as a person, humorous, etc. You can see the bigger picture. But then if the sun is in Scorpio, well, this adds intensity. There could be greater intensity to the communication stuff. And there could also be greater fixed views or being so emotionally involved in something, and then it's actually difficult for you to sort of see the bigger picture at times. And then if the sun is in Capricorn, it's an interesting pairing with Capricorn Sagittarius because the Capricorn side could say that you're a bit more realistic. You may hold space for being more realistic and down to earth, but at the same time, being caught up in the ideals and the hopes for the future and being more positive about things there too. Naturally here, when we think about your learning style, when it comes to learning, you enjoy reading and I would say doing. You prefer to learn as you actually do the thing, or perhaps learning via communicating, actually speaking it out with others. New topics can be viewed as a new adventure. So exciting for you, right? And throughout your life, as the secondary progress, Mercury enters Capricorn. This is where we notice that how you communicate may be a bit more planned out or strategic, or you try to be a little bit more careful as well. So on that note, let's turn our focus to Mercury and Capricorn, folks. Mercury being in Capricorn means that your sun is either going to be in Capricorn or it's going to be in Sagittarius or Aquarius. Mercury and Capricorn, folks, your communication style tends to be both assertive and passive. You never want to appear foolish or mindless, and so you make sure to choose your words very carefully. Okay? Planning what you're going to say is necessary, or even being able to build upon what has already been said. You want to be seen as somewhat responsible and capable. Though, no matter how much you plan, right, this is the thing, there is a part of you that fears that you'll mess up. And typically, you don't sugarcoat things. You say it like it is. And you can even come across as quite dry, right? There can be this dry way that you communicate, possibly dry humor at times. Being sarcastic as well can also come through. Yeah, you're not the most enthusiastic communicator, but you're still reliable and you communicate with maturity. You communicate as well in a rather respectful way, or from a place of authority, right? Where people actually, they listen to you because it's like, well, you know what you're talking about. But you see, when you feel disrespected when you communicate, you might either sulk, think in a pessimistic way, in a negative way, or you could very well remind others of their own stupidity, of their own mistakes. You will not tolerate others being disrespectful toward you within conversations, and you may really hold your own, right? Naturally, we want to think about where the sun is. So if the sun is already in Capricorn, there is this greater sense of responsibility and maturity. And naturally, anything Capricorn, things gradually start to lighten, and wisdom is also gained. And so we could notice with you that you become a really wise communicator, which is also expressed, right? There's that self-expression piece with the sun. And I also want to say that if the sun is in Sagittarius and you've got Mercury in Capricorn, it's an interesting pairing because the sun in Sagittarius could say that when it comes to things that are more dry, or when it comes to the heavier stuff related to Capricorn, or when it comes to setbacks and delays, even within communication, you may find ways to be somewhat positive, or to be witty about it, to be comical about it. You could very well be a very sort of funny person because there's that comical side, but there's also that dry humor side to it, and the sarcasm mixed in. Yeah, you can make jokes out of your own misery, out of your own pain and suffering, possibly. But then if the sun is in Aquarius, well, this is where we notice that you can be rather innovative and inventive, and you like to do things your way, and you can often stay true to, right, okay, this is my uniqueness. But that Mercury and Capricorn part is still about, okay, well, what am I building? How can I actually create structure? That one I think is an interesting dynamic too, or an interesting pairing, because your mind could be limiting you at times, right? Your mindset could be quite different to the sun being in Aquarius, where sun in Aquarius is more about, I want to break free. You're breaking the rules, you're pushing back against authority, but the mindset is still about, okay, well, there is a system here, actually. There is a structure that I'm trying to follow, and I need to follow the rules in a lot of ways. Yes. So when it comes to your learning style, you prefer to take your time. This is important, I think. You really need to take your time. You cannot cut corners when it comes to what you're learning about. And you prefer to learn in tangible ways, and you'll listen if you think the information is useful. Plus, the second I progress Mercury entering into Aquarius throughout your life, this can suggest that over time, you start to sort of think outside of the box. You could experiment with new ideas, or you could be more concerned about the differences that you wish to make in the world, right? There's change and there's difference that you wish to be a part of there. Moving on then to Mercury in Aquarius. I have this placement. Mercury is in Aquarius in my 6th house in the whole sign system, but then it's in the 5th house using Placidus. So if you have Mercury in Aquarius, your sun is either going to be in Aquarius like me, or it's going to be in Capricorn, or it's going to be in Pisces. Mercury in Aquarius, folks, your communication style tends to be a mix of both assertive and passive. There are times when you'll engage in a conversation, clearly stating your point of view, your perspective, but there can also be moments when you appear nonchalant, even though underneath the surface, your emotions are stirring. So this is where we see the assertive part where, yes, you clearly state your view, your opinion, but there's the passive part where you can sit back, you can observe and listen, but you can also appear nonchalant at times. And you enjoy controversial discussions and topics, but you could very well hide this part of yourself around others who won't understand your outside of the box thinking. You may feel like, well, it's a waste of time anyway. You may be able to read your audience quite well in this regard, keeping your own sort of controversial views or your own strong opinions for the right kinds of people. Plus, sharing how you feel can be challenging because you're in your head a lot of the time. Naturally, when we think about the sun, if the sun is in Aquarius, this information could very well be true for you. You may relate to this information, right? Where perhaps it is about you just rationalizing things, trying to make logical sense of things, and more so observing when you need to, and maybe even you need that time in your own space to be able to process information more. Of course, Aquarius is still ruled by Saturn after all, but then let's say the sun is in Capricorn and you've got Mercury in Aquarius. Maybe there's greater authority on your part. Perhaps there is a greater desire to want to be heard and listened to within conversations, and maybe as well, there's greater maturity as well. Then let's say the sun is in Pisces. Well, you could be a bit more emotional in this way, or more in tune with, okay, these are the feelings that I want to express, but it's still your mindset that's kind of like, okay, well, is this person deserving really of what I'm going to say here? Maybe, hey, this adds greater awareness of really reading people empathetically, intuitively as well. So that could play out too, based on, okay, how you say things, what you say, and being able to recognize if someone is actually listening to you or if they care enough to hear you out, really. So with the learning style stuff, when it comes to learning, you are willing to experiment with any style. You're open to different types as well. And you can be disciplined. You can be a practical learner. However, difficulty listening and having your own agenda can create potential problems, Mercury and Aquarius folks. Still, you can be rather inventive and creative when it comes to learning there. And then throughout your life, with the secondary progressed Mercury entering into Pisces, this could invite greater imagination, greater fantasy. Again, it goes back to what I was saying, maybe being able to read people a little bit more because of that empathetic feel, that emotional feel. Or this can suggest that empathy through communication really comes through yourself, because with Mercury being in Aquarius, perhaps you can be somewhat tactless, but maybe the Mercury and Pisces influence can create greater ability to feel into, okay, right, when I say this, how is this other person maybe gonna feel when I do? So there is that. I know for me, I've recognized this throughout my life. Right. Lastly, Mercury in Pisces, folks. So if you've got Mercury in Pisces, the sun is either going to be in Pisces, Aquarius, or Aries. Mercury in Pisces, folks, your communication style tends to be passive. Often appearing dreamy or in your own world, you soak up the conversations happening in the atmosphere, and you could very well get along with many people and can have this go with the flow mentality. And you'll prefer to follow your intuition and possibly your heart over facts and over logic. As I was saying a moment ago, Mercury is an Aquarius in my chart, but the second I regressed Mercury entered Pisces for a good part of my life. And I can see that how for so much of my life, I was following more of my heart and my feelings rather than the actual facts and logic, which was not necessarily always a good thing. I just want to say that. But anyway, and I also want to say as well, Mercury in Aquarius is still the more sort of dominant part of this, just because I have that natally. Still, you can be a great listener if you have Mercury in Pisces, whilst expecting others to pick up on your subtle hints. Maybe this for me is where I'm trying to learn from my second regress Mercury entering Aries, where I need to come to terms with being more direct again. It's like, no, this is how I feel. But yeah, I can see that. So do keep that in mind in terms of, okay, follow that second regress Mercury. Just see where it is in your chart. Think about the degrees, etc. So again, back to you, Mercury and Pisces folks. If or when you feel like you're being taken for granted, you can be a passive-aggressive communicator. I think you can pick up on that quite well. But instead of sharing how you feel to someone, you can be resentful, you can be secretive. So with that in mind, if the sun is in Pisces and Mercury is also there, you may really relate to this information. But yes, we really see here that you can be very sensitive and very intuitive when it comes to communication there. Poetic, my goodness, poetic people, imaginative. But then if the sun is in Aquarius and Mercury is in Pisces, it's an interesting pairing, right? Because that Mercury in Pisces is like, I feel it all when it comes to this information coming through, but my sun is in Aquarius and, you know, a part of you may want to detach or separate yourself a little bit or kind of logically make sense of things. So that's a bit of a balance there, or a bit of a tug there, tug of war perhaps. But then if the sun is in Aries, well, the sun in Aries is an interesting pairing, because then there's a part of you that is like, no, yes, I'm going to be direct. I want to put myself first. It's my identity. But then your Mercury in Pisces is still thinking, oh, but they feel this way. And what if this and what if that? I hope you can see where I'm coming from here. Right. When it comes to your learning style, you are a great visual learner. Symbols, images, grab your curiosity. Yes, a good story, right? You may enjoy reading, you may enjoy journaling if you've got Mercury in Pisces. And then for you, with the secondary regress Mercury entering into Aries throughout your life, this is going to welcome that greater assertiveness, that greater directness. We come back to Mercury and Aries here, you know, from the beginning. And like I said, for myself, right, the secondary regress Mercury has entered Aries. It's been there for a few years. It could be there, I think it's there for a long time. The secondary regress Mercury will actually turn retrograde for a good while. But these are some things that I am coming to learn within my own life. So, everyone, this has been Mercury through the signs. Thank you all so much for being here. And if you would like to join the Patreon, you can do so. The link is just down below. And I want to say thank you so much to my patrons over there for all of your support. Thank you for listening. If you would like to book a reading with me, you can visit my website, hannahselsewhere.com. And if you really enjoyed today's video, you can always buy me a coffee. But of course, no pressure. Thank you just for watching. I appreciate you being here. I'm really glad actually that I was able to create this video today. I made a series all about Mercury through the signs years ago, but due to copyright reasons, clips, things like this, it's no longer. So this has been sort of like a nice update, a nice refresher as well. And maybe one day I'll go into greater detail based on, with the sun being in the signs mixed with Mercury. Even just let me know, is that something you'd be interested in? But with all of that being said, thank you so much for watching. Thank you for subscribing. Make sure to comment, like, subscribe, all that good stuff. And again, let me know, where is Mercury within your chart? And I will talk to you all in the next video. Bye!